Hi everyone. I'm trying out a new toy today. I've never used StreamYard before. This is the first time. And so this is kind of like a new toy that I get to play with. It's very exciting. I'm hoping it's actually on my Facebook page. Right now I'm on the StreamYard website, so I can't really see. Actually, I'll go on my Facebook page now and we'll see. Um, Hello, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for giving your time. And I'm so excited to be talking with you tonight. We got some good questions. I put it out there on my Instagram, on Facebook, and in my email list. So if you're a part of my email list, you saw that I put the word out there for questions, and I got a few good ones. So we're going to be talking about those at the end of this live. And yeah, I think it's going to be great. I also have a really exciting announcement that I'm going to be sharing at the end of this video. So stay tuned for that. If you follow me on Instagram, I shared a story I think it was this morning. This morning feels like so long ago, but I shared that my grandma had given me a book for Christmas. And it's a really interesting book. It's set in Quebec, where I live in Canada. And it talks about some historical things that happened that are kind of like dark parts of Quebec's history that I actually wasn't aware of. I've grown up in Quebec my whole life and didn't know about these events. Just for reference, they were about the Duplessis orphans and the October Crisis. And I had never heard of either of these events, and they are quite dark. And it got me thinking. I was thinking about it a lot today, about how, it's a perfect example of what we're going to be talking about tonight, about how kind of like merging hard skills like history with soft skills like empathy and understanding and compassion. And I think if teachers are, properly shown ways or made aware of ways to kind of merge these hard skills and soft skills, I think something beautiful could really happen in education. So that's kind of what I hope to somehow help contribute to. And obviously, if you're here listening tonight, you're a teacher, probably in an elementary classroom, who values soft skills. So I'm really excited to kind of jump into it tonight. And again, this is like very new to me, this whole StreamYard thing. So it's very exciting. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jennifer Gauthier, and I call myself like multi-passionate. I'm passionate about a lot of things. Just check out my Teachers Pay Teachers store. You'll see that I have, especially, maybe not so much now, I'm more focused on soft skills now, but if you look back when I started my Teacher Pay Teachers store, I had resources for math, I had resources for like different Netflix TV shows you could watch in the classroom, for English, I had for grade 5, grade 6, kindergarten. I was kind of all over the place because I am so passionate about so many things. But as I've kind of refined and really started like reflecting on what I'm really passionate about the most, those two things are really research and finding unique and engaging ways to bring soft skills into the classroom in ways that are manageable for teachers. The last thing I want to do is like pile on more work for teachers. But I think there is finding a way. It's just about finding ways to kind of bring soft skills and turn our students into the best people they can be, but in creative and unique ways that are manageable. So that's a little bit about me. I'd love to hear from you, what your name is, where you teach, what you teach, and any questions you have. Like I said, I have a few that I will bring up at the end. But if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I can see the comments, and we will talk about them. Oops. So as I mentioned, I will be talking about questions and an exciting announcement at the end. If you have not done so yet, I encourage you to grab my freebie. I will put it in the comments. Actually, I'll put it right now. And hopefully you can see these comments. It's actually the perfect time to grab it, because if you do get my freebie, you get on my email list, and I'm actually in the process right now of updating this free guide. It's all about soft skills and finding ways to bring these soft skills into your classroom. And I'm in the process of updating it. And if you are on my email list, you'll be the first to know when it is updated. So I encourage you to go download that. And let's get started. So for those of you, one question I did get actually are what are soft skills and what are hard skills? So hard skills are those talent and abilities that can be measured. They're usually specific to a particular job, and they can be learned through schooling or on the job training. So think of anything if you're in the States, any Common Core standards. Here in Quebec, we call them competencies. So anything that you're actually measuring through the curriculum and through testing, those are what we call hard skills. Now, soft skills, on the other hand, are less defined skills that often apply not only to one specific job, but are universal. So often, if you like Google soft skills, you'll often find resources that are related to jobs, like for adults. And they are the soft skills that are not specific to one job. So they would be applied to any job. And we often call them interpersonal skills or people skills. So it's important to differentiate between the two. As teachers, we're often very focused on the hard skills because those are the skills that we have to teach in order to assess students and for testing. We're getting into testing season right now. So hard skills are definitely are big on your mind. But soft skills kind of often, because of that, get left to the wayside. But as you'll see in the next slide, soft skills are just as, if not more important than hard skills. So I hope that kind of explains the difference between the two if you're not already familiar with them. So like I said, they are subject matter expertise, anything math skills related, often like STEM, science, technology, computers, very technical skills, whereas soft skills are the more people skills. So like problem solving, storytelling, collaboration, communication, purpose, creativity, the list goes on and on and on. So that's the difference between the two. If you look, I do tons of research on soft skills, but actually before this live, I did a quick Google search, and these were some of the images that show up when you Google soft skills and some of the statistics that come with soft skills. So only 31% of employers reported that their job candidate have satisfactory soft skills. 97% of employers agreed that soft skills impact job performance. So as you see here, like all the statistics are in the favor of soft skills. They are extremely important. And I think now, especially in the time we're in with technology, like things like coding and those more technical skills are so important, but they're also removing a lot of those people skills that students need to develop at a young age in order to be competent employees later on in life. So it's now more important than ever that we do really harness those soft skills in our younger students. And I feel like it's something that's not really talked about very much, but I think it's so important. So certain skills are going to tie in more naturally to certain competency standards more than any other. So I want to jump into like some tips on how to incorporate soft skills into your classroom and how they kind of tie into education. So when you're curriculum mapping, I've done some lives before on curriculum mapping. So if you want to know more about that, I encourage you to go back in the archives of my Facebook page. Think about what soft skills would lend themselves to your curriculum. So I'm going to give one example. So like, let's say you're a teacher and this coming month, we're almost in February. In February, I will be focusing on opinion writing, reading informational texts, and giving an oral report on a topic. So you know that that's your focus for the month of February. So now we're going to start to think, what soft skills could I incorporate in those hard skills, we could say. So let me go back. So there's opinion writing. So students need to be able to know how to form an opinion and what their opinion is on a topic. We could make that topic something nonfiction based because they're going to be reading informational text. That's the reading focus. So we can take an informational text or multiple informational texts on one specific topic maybe, or we can leave it open-ended, and students will be writing an opinion piece on that informational text or those informational texts and their topic. And then they could, once they have written an opinion piece, they can also give an oral report on that specific topic. So you're taking one topic, but you're streaming it into reading, writing, and speaking and listening. So now we need to think, now that we know kind of what curriculum, what standards we're going to be hitting in the next month, we can start focusing on what soft skills we want to focus on. So here are just some examples. So if we're talking about forming an opinion, and looking at multiple sources, then students need to have critical thinking skills. They need to have listening skills if they're going to be watching, maybe watching like a documentary on a specific topic. If they're going to be listening to audio clips or video clips about the topic, they need to have listening skills. They also need to be able to listen to their peers when they're giving their opinion. They need to have communication skills. They need to know how to communicate their opinion. And also digital literacy is also related to critical thinking and thinking, well, where is this source coming from? Is it more opinion-based? Is it more fact-based? So these could all be the soft skills that I could focus on in the month. Now, that seems very overwhelming. These are going to be things that you're probably already covering just through doing the skills that we've mentioned here. You're already doing these inherently, but if you want to focus on actually teaching these skills, then what I recommend doing is just picking one. So what's one skill that you could be focusing on for the month of February? And I'm going to go into how to do that, but for now in your mind, maybe just think of one. So like, let's say, for example, we do critical thinking. So I've decided for the month of February, I want to focus on critical thinking with my students. So now we're going to break that down even further, and we're going to think, okay, what's one 5-minute a day activity that I could implement with my students every day for just 5 minutes? I'm sure I could sacrifice 5 minutes of my day with my students to do one activity. So here are some examples of some 5-minute activities that would explore and teach students critical thinking. So one could be, we could explore a question. Each day we can have a question on the board and we can explore it. Another one, excuse me. Another one was, I saw this strategy and I really liked it. Explain it to a 6-year-old strategy. So I believe it was Albert Einstein that came up with this. He said, if you can't explain a topic to a 6-year-old, then you don't understand it well enough. Because when you're explaining a topic to a 6-year-old, you need to be very succinct and you really need to focus on like one sentence, make it crystal clear. And if you can't take a topic and really like break it down into like 1 or 2 sentences, then you don't understand it well enough. So I kind of like the idea, and I could see this as a really fun activity where students would take a very basic topic. You would, as the teacher, you could choose the topic, something you know that students probably have a lot of information on, and then they would have to either write or verbally explain it as if they were explaining it to a 6-year-old. And I can already in my mind see like a fun little worksheet you could create with it. So that could be something that could be done in 5 minutes. And then they could share it with their peers. Another one could be research the opposite of your belief. So let's say, for example, you have a topic, students have an opinion on it. They have to then research the opposite. So like the opposing opinion or opposing belief on that topic. And that could be something that students could just do for about 5 minutes. Maybe it could be done like 5 minutes each day on the same topic. So at the end of the week, students would then share what they've learned, and maybe they've like formed a new opinion. So that could be a fun speaking and listening activity. Another one could be a brain teaser. So like a riddle, or I'm blanking on the name right now, but there's a really fun activity that's like a puzzle. Yeah, I'm totally blanking on it. If I think of it, I'll put it in the comments. Or another one could be fact versus opinion. So you could show students an article and they would have to decide if it's more fact-based or opinion-based. So these would all be examples of activities you could do for just 5 minutes a day that would allow students to explore critical thinking. So that's just one strategy of how you could choose one soft skill and focus on it for 1 month. And I hope that was helpful. I'd love to know if you have any other ideas, either if it comes to critical thinking or any other soft skills. If you feel like your brains are turning, please leave in the comments what you're thinking. I'd love to hear it. So now I want to go over a few of the questions I got. I think I have 3. So, excuse me, I need some water. So Kaylee asked, which soft skills are the most important? I teach kindergarten. So that's a good question. I would never say that some soft skills are more important than others. In terms of kindergarten, some that come to mind would be sharing, cooperation, listening, following directions, respecting personal space, manners. I would maybe just again choose like one. But it's really personal to you, like what you think. Maybe your students, you notice that your students are really struggling with sharing. You would want to focus on that. So don't necessarily think like, oh, these are the skills I have to focus on because it's kindergarten. Try and think like what you're noticing in your students, and that maybe take like a week just to observe what you're noticing in the classroom and what you find students are struggling with the most. Okay, next question. So Sheena asked, is it better to focus on one skill at a time or to blend multiple skills? I'm guessing she means like teach multiple at the same time or just focus on one. Like I said, I think it's better and more manageable. Ideally, if you could do a lot at once, that'd be great. But just to make it more manageable for you and for your students, I think it's better to focus on one skill at a time. And that could be one skill at a time, like maybe 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. Like I said before, maybe a whole month. It's really up to you and like based on the progress you see in your students. Something I forgot to mention in that first question about which soft skills are the most important, while there's no skill that's more important than the other, when I did research, I did notice that communication and empathy were always on the list. Like if you do a Google image search and there's all of these like infographics with the top ones, usually there's like 7 per image. Communication and empathy are always there. So I would say that definitely those two are very important. And then question 3 is Mara asked, do you think of soft skills in terms of seasons and what could I focus on now? So that's a great question. I know when I'm creating resources or researching, I try and focus on soft skills that are relevant for that time of year. So what I've been focusing on right now a lot of is empathy, because I just think like Valentine's Day and Black History Month in March is National Disability Awareness Month. I think that's what it's called. So I feel like empathy kind of relates to those I don't want to call them holidays, but those events. So I think empathy is like a good one year round to focus on. I would say, like I mentioned before, testing season is coming up. So in terms of testing season, I think some great ones to maybe start focusing on, maybe in February, maybe even March, could be like stress management, growth mindset, following directions, I said stress management. Yeah, so those ones, because it is such a high strung and very stressful time, the testing season. And we think as teachers that we're the only ones that feel that, but definitely students feel it too. So I think, even like meditation. So things that try and like get students calm, feeling confident for the testing season. I think those would be great ones to focus on coming into that season. So I want to say thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, I forgot to say I had an announcement. I said I had an announcement. I need to mention what it is. I'm going to be participating in a very exciting event coming soon. I can't give too many details on what it is, but I'm really excited to be a part of this event. And it is specifically for elementary teachers. So like I said, if you are on my email list, definitely watch out for that email because it will be coming in the weeks to come. I'll be able to give you more details on that. So like I said, download that guide. I put the link in the comment. You'll get on my email list and then you will be the first to know more details about this event. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Again, if you have any questions or comments, you can message me privately or put it in this page or put it in the Facebook group. But I hope you have a wonderful night. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and I will see you next week. Bye.